Hello and welcome to the Gameweek 17 edition of the FPL Scope podcast. As you can see, there's only one person left out of the original crew of 3 people, and that is me, Mathias, the main host. I can say now that the other 2 are gone. But yeah, so Kimo is still in Egypt. He'll be returning around New Year's to be on the podcast. That will be for Gameweek, I think it's Gameweek 21, after the little break in January with the FA Cup and League Cup fixtures. Kevin was supposed to be on this podcast, but some scheduling conflicts with Christmas coming up and all that stuff made it impossible for us to be ready to film at the same time, in time before the next deadline and Christmas and all that stuff happening in the weekend. So I'm gonna have to do this myself. But Kevin will be back for the Gameweek 18 edition of the podcast. So we need to get back to reality, as it says there on the screen. Back to Salah and Haaland rather than the World Cup, which finished in Qatar with Messi finally winning that elusive World Cup trophy. It's a really good final, and Kevin and I actually made like a full podcast recapping the whole World Cup in terms of like the team of the tournament and how we did in fantasy and all of that stuff. But I realized that right after the podcast actually that the mic, there was some issue with my mic, so anything I said was not recorded. So it's basically just me just sitting there miming and Kevin speaking every now and then, so it didn't really work as a podcast. But yeah, Kevin said some insightful stuff, so I might post some of that as single like clips on the YouTube channel, but I'm going to look into that. He had like a small little 10 minutes, like almost 10 minutes straight of just like ramping on about Messi and winning the World Cup and how you should savor the moment and all that stuff. So that will definitely come up on the channel for Christmas. But yeah, for now, we got to go back to FPL. And going back to FPL, the most important thing to do is to look at the fixtures. So that's what we're going to do right now. So as you can see here, this is the fixture ticker. It has been updated with the confirmed double game weeks. It should be noted, however, that in Game Week 20, when Man City and Spurs have a double game week, they play each other. That match might still be moved away again from Game Week 20 if either City or Tottenham get a draw in the FA Cup and they need another match to determine the winner of the FA Cup third round. Then that match will be moved away, so the double game week would be negated probably. The biggest chance of that happening is if Man City draw against Chelsea. They play each other in the FA Cup, so if that match ends up as a draw and they need another match, then the Spurs-Man City match in Game Week 20 will be gone, and it will just be a single game week for everyone else. As you can see, there's also a double game week in Game Week 19, Chelsea playing against Fulham. That's also one of the reasons why Chelsea are atop of the fixture ticker in terms of difficulty rating. As you can also see, they have some easy matches: Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest away, Crystal Palace at home, on top of the double game week. The only thing with Chelsea is that their form right before the break was really terrible. As you can see on the right there, it says expected goals and expected goals conceded in the 6 game weeks before the World Cup break. And Chelsea had basically the worst expected goals in those game weeks, and pretty bad expected goals conceded as well. So it remains to be seen how many Chelsea players you should have in your team, but we'll get to that pretty soon. I'm going to go through some squads. I'm going to go through like the template squad and then like an alternate squad without any template players to give you some options. And then I'm also going to reveal my own squad at the end. But before we move on to that, we got to talk about some other stuff with the fixture ticker. As you can see, there are some teams there highlighted in yellow. That's Everton, Brighton, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, and Arsenal. And that's because they have potential double game weeks in Game Week 19 and Game Week 21. So Everton and Arsenal are both knocked out of the League Cup, so there's really no reason not to put their double game week fixture in Game Week 21, as the wonderful Ben Krellin has told us through Twitter. But it might not still be announced as a double game week. We don't know if it's going to be a double game week or not. The fact that it hasn't been announced yet makes me lean towards it not happening, but you never really know. But all of a sudden, Everton and Arsenal might have a double game week in Game Week 21, which would certainly help Arsenal. As you can see, they are at the bottom of the fixture ticker because they have the most difficult matches. If you look at Newcastle, Spurs, and Man United, not the worst fixtures. They don't play against Man City, but still. They do have some kind opening fixtures, so with West Ham, who I sadly have to admit are one of the easiest matches, playing against West Ham at home. And then they have Brighton away, which is kind of a tricky match. So Arsenal is a bit tough to judge, but as you can see on the expected goals conceded, they were really good defensively before the break. Not as good offensively, and with Gabriel Jesus injured, that might be even worse now. So not 100% sold on Arsenal attack, considering the fixtures and no Jesus, but we'll see what happens with them. But going back to the double game weeks, you can also see Brighton are highlighted, and they're highlighted alongside Bournemouth and the Crystal Palace. Basically, Brighton have 2 matches, one because of the train strikes against Crystal Palace, and one because of the Queen's death against Bournemouth. Brighton can play these matches in Gameweek 19 and Gameweek 21 with, I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's Brighton against Bournemouth in Gameweek 19, and then Brighton against Palace in Gameweek 21, which is the most likely, potentially, if it gets rearranged. The Gameweek 19 is coming up pretty soon, so they should be making an announcement pretty soon if Brighton indeed have a double game week in Gameweek 19. Otherwise, it might move into Gameweek 21, which is sort of like the prolonged game week, where it starts in the start of January and then it lasts until like almost mid-January. So there's potential even for a triple game week for Brighton, according to Ben Crellin. So just keep a lookout for that. Brighton as well, they have pretty decent fixtures, apart from the Arsenal match, which is at home. They have Southampton away, they have Everton away. Liverpool at home is kind of, it depends just how good Liverpool are, but Liverpool were really bad away from home before the break. So, and famously, Trossard scored a hat-trick at Anfield, so who knows what Brighton can do against Liverpool. And then Leicester away. So, especially if Brighton get 2 double game weeks, you need to have Trossard and potentially a defender as well, or 2 defenders even. I don't think Welbeck. There might be some midfielders as well. Gross has been good for them. Mitoma was really good for Japan in the World Cup. He might be a good option, and McAllister as well, the World Cup winner, who was instrumental for Argentina. So they have some really good picks from Brighton. As far as Crystal Palace goes, not as many picks. They have obviously Wilfried Zaha, which is definitely an option with Fulham and Bournemouth. I'll be talking a bit more about that in the alternate squad, where he's a part of. But yeah, that's it for the double game weeks, as far as I can tell. There are obviously a lot more double game weeks to come, because the whole of Game Week 7 was postponed because of Queen Elizabeth's death. So still have a lot of matches to slot into this. Game Week 21 might be like a bigger double game week, but it still remains to be seen, and we probably won't know about that double game week before the deadline for Game Week 17, when the unlimited transfers are set to be removed. So yeah, just keep that in mind. In terms of the other fixtures, as you can see, Man City, double game week, some really easy fixtures. It just makes sense to triple up on them, even if they were at the bottom of this fixture ticker. It would make a lot of sense to have triple Man City, or at least double Man City. But yeah, we'll get to that pretty soon. We'll take a look at the template squad, which is basically the players that are the most selected. It's not like just to bring you up to speed on how I put together this squad, it was just by looking through some of the most picked players among the FPL experts, basically people from Fantasy Football Scout, people from the FPL Reddit, all that type of stuff. I just looked through all the teams and looked at the players that were the most popular, and this is the template squad that I came up with. The goalkeepers are super template, Arrizabalaga and Ward. It's really, you don't really see any other goalkeeper combination apart from maybe Ward and Iverson, if you want to go super cheap. But yeah, Kepa, the nice fixtures for Chelsea, the potential game, or the double game week potentially, or not potentially, the double game week for Chelsea, just makes him a really good option. And Ward is basically the best backup option for 4.0, 4.1, whatever his price is at the moment. He's proved to be a really good goalkeeper in the end, after a pretty terrible start. So there's definitely an option to go with Ward, Iverson, but the template is still Arrizabalaga and Ward. In defense, Cancelo, to my dismay, he is still template, which means that I also have to have him and curse him, so he's probably not going to perform that well, but at least other people won't be gaining an advantage from having Cancelo when I don't. So yeah, Cancelo is in the template team. He is the most nailed City defender apart from Ederson in goal, which is a different goalkeeper you could potentially go with. But yeah, Cancelo is the most nailed starter in defense for City, especially with all the defenders from City being really good at the World Cup. So you have Nathan Ake was really good for Netherlands. You had Akanji put in a good shift for Switzerland. Stones was really good for England, and then obviously Ruben Dias and Laporte are usually the starting centre backs for Man City. So there's a lot of competition for the centre back spots for City. In terms of left back spot, there's not as much competition. It's mostly Cancelo. Sometimes what's his name, Rico, the youngster that they brought in, a left back, and then obviously Kyle Walker is back fit as well, so that might actually hamper Cancelo, but Cancelo can always move left unless Ake plays left back or Laporte plays left back. Akanji can also play right back as well, so they have a lot of options, but Cancelo is usually pretty nailed, so he makes a lot of sense in the template team. Ben White is the preferred Arsenal defender. He's the cheapest out of the safe Arsenal defenders. Gabriel Magalhaes is slightly more expensive. Saliba is slightly more expensive as well, and Saliba is also on 4 yellow cards, so he might be on the suspension, or he is on the suspension tightrope. If he gets another yellow card, he'll get suspended. So that means that White is the best Arsenal defender. And as you can see from the fixture ticker, Arsenal have pretty much the best defense in the league, at least before the break, the World Cup break. Reece James, another popular option. He's working himself back to fitness. He played 60 minutes for Chelsea the other day. Looks like a really good pick. He can be so explosive that it makes a lot of sense to have him, especially with Chelsea and their fixtures. Doubling up with Arrizabalaga and James just seems to make a lot of sense. Kieran Trippier, don't really have to mention it. He's the best defender in the game this season, and you just got to have him. Newcastle are really good, and Trippier has been consistent the whole season, returning points pretty much every game week. So you need to have Trippier. He's one of the must-haves, in my opinion. Salah is also another player that might be a must-have. He has been a must-have for most of the 4 or 5 seasons he's played now in the Premier League. He just scored now against Man City. I just finished watching Man City against Liverpool before I filmed this, and he scored, as well as Haaland, who we'll get to pretty soon. But yeah, Salah seems like a nailed pick. Only thing I should say is that Liverpool have 3 out of the next 4 matches are away from home, and before the break they were really, really, really bad away from home. It should be noted that they beat Spurs away from home in the final match before the break. But that can also be because Spurs are really bad in the big games. So who knows really with Liverpool. But Salah is always like a surefire thing for points and goals. It just depends on the price. But he is a template pick for sure. Martinelli also like a template pick. Some people have gone for Saka. Very few other people have gone for Nketiah. Martinelli should still be pretty nailed. He should be really nailed with Emil Smith-Rowe still not back to full fitness. He's just been struggling with injuries the whole season. It doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. Gabriel Jesus is also injured, of course, so that means Martinelli might even play striker for a bit. Just remains to be seen if that actually helps him or hurts him, because he's been really good on the wing this season, but he makes a lot of sense for only 6.7 or 6.8, I think. He's 6.5 for me since I've had him for a while, but I'm still not sure if I'm going to have him because I'm not sure about Arsenal's fixtures. Anyways, moving right along, Man United fixtures are really, really, really good, especially the next 3. They play Nottingham Forest at home in Gameweek 17. Marcus Rashford was amazing in the World Cup. He scored a really nice goal in the League Cup now just a couple of days ago. And he just looks like a really good pick for 6.7. So he makes a lot of sense. Miguel Almiron, the highest scoring midfielder in the game, for 5.8. That's at least what I have him for. Also makes a lot of sense. Newcastle are really, really, really good. Almiron has been a revelation this season. And there's not much reason to sell him, in my opinion. And he makes a lot of sense as the template pick. Then the most template pick of them all, Erling Haaland. He already scored against Liverpool. Scored the opening goal after about 10 minutes against Liverpool. So he makes a lot of sense to have in your team. not really much to be said about that. He's going to be the auto captain mostly, like he was before the World Cup break as well. He has been resting the whole time, and apparently he's up to speed, scoring against Liverpool straight away. Speaking of Liverpool, you have Darwin. He still struggles finishing chances, but he gets to so many chances that he's going to be an explosive player one way or the other. It just depends which game week he returns a lot of points or not. But yeah, he gets a lot of chances. He got an assist. He got a really nice assist to Salah. He sprinted past, I think it was Laporte, and passed it into Salah, who scored easily. So doubling up on the Liverpool attack might make a lot of sense, even with the away matches that I just spoke about. Ward, I just talked about him originally with the goalkeepers, so don't really need to mention more about him. Mitrovic seems to be the preferred third striker. Some people go with Martial, but Mitrovic seems to be a really popular pick. Fulham have a double game week in game week 19. They have decent-ish matches, and Mitrovic has just proven that he's a goal scorer. He's proven that in the World Cup. He's proven that in the Premier League. Proved that in the Championship last season. So he makes a lot of sense. But he's also on the suspension tightrope. He has 4 yellow cards, so after his next yellow card, he will be suspended. So he might be suspended for the double game week. That's the only pitfall with him, really. Otherwise, he's a really good striker for a pretty cheap price still. Speaking of cheap Fulham players, Andreas has been a mainstay in many teams. Again, double game week, decent fixtures. He makes a lot of sense to have for a cheap price. And then at the end, we have Bueno from Wolverhampton. Lopetegui has taken over for Wolverhampton, and he has a pretty good defensive record. Bueno has been playing in the preseason matches, or the friendly matches leading into Game Week 17. He even scored in one of the matches, played really well in the other one, and just looks like a really good pick as well, especially for 3.9. He's the best cheap defender to just stash on your bench and use whenever you need him, really. So that's the template squad. But yeah, template squads, you can see this type of team with a lot of content creators. So just as an alternative, I figured I should make a squad without any of these players in it. So this is what I came up with some decent picks that are not super template. Some of these players are pretty template still, but some of these players are also a bit out there. So just gonna go quickly through them. I mentioned Ederson earlier. He's the most nailed out of all the City defenders. He scored just a smidge under the point scores of Cancelo. So he makes a lot of sense if you don't want to go with the Kepa and Ward double option. Ward should probably still be a backup goalkeeper, but since I can't pick him for this squad, I picked the best potential backup goalkeeper for the same price, or for even cheaper, 3.9. Robin Olsen for Aston Villa. He's still potentially injured, so even though Emi Martinez hasn't returned yet for Aston Villa, Olsen might not even play, but they're playing Liverpool anyway, so he's just a bench option you can stash. And also with Emi Martinez's heroics in the World Cup, he might be sold in January, who knows, and that would make way for Olsen to be the starting goalkeeper for Aston Villa, so he makes a lot of sense for a backup goalkeeper if you can't pick Ward. In terms of defense, Luke Shaw or Diogo Dalot. If Dalot is back healthy, he's the better option in my opinion for the same price, but Luke Shaw seems to be back and ready to go. Starting left back from Man United, they have really good opening fixtures, 3 really easy opening fixtures, but it should be noted that their preferred defenders, like I said, Dalot, he's struggling with an injury, he might be out. We already know Varane and Lisandro Martinez went all the way to the final in the World Cup, so they're not going to be ready for Game Week 17 and potentially Game Week 18 as well. So that's the only thing with Man United. They might not be as sound defensively, but considering their fixtures, I think it makes a lot of sense to go with Luke Shaw. Gabriel, he's the more expensive option than Ben White. He scored the most goals from defense last season, and there's no reason he can't keep that up. He scored in, I think it was Game Week 15 or something, right before the break. Got me 15 points for my team, so I'm definitely a big fan of Gabriel Magalhaes. He plays West Ham in the first match. Should be potentially a good game for him. Then I have another Chelsea option. Rather than having Reece James, you can go for someone cheaper. Chaluba has been playing pretty much 90 minutes every game since Fofana got injured, and Fofana is still out injured for a couple of weeks, so Chaluba makes a lot of sense for 4.7. There's also just a shout out to Kimo, who had Chaluba back initially when Fofana got injured. Fofana also should be noted, when he's back, he's like 4.3 or 4.2 since he was a Leicester player at the start of the season when FPL launched. So he's going to be a really good pick eventually if he gets fit. He's been injured mostly the last 2 years, so who knows really. But Chaluba, in his absence, decent option. Then it's a pretty stacked midfield. We have Bruno Fernandes, who has been amazing in FPL before Cristiano Ronaldo came to Man United. Cristiano Ronaldo is there no more. He left. He's going to Al Nassr, I think, in Saudi Arabia. Good luck to him. His big time career in Europe is over, it seems like. And I think Bruno Fernandes will benefit greatly from this, especially considering he'll be on penalties, most likely. I still think it's going to be Fernandes, might even be Rashford, who knows. I think it's still going to be Fernandes taking penalties for Man United, which makes him a really good option, even with his price. It's pretty high. I think it's 9.8, 9.9, can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, he should be the talisman for Man United. He was the highest scoring FPL player 2 seasons ago, and there's no reason he can't be that again. Of course, it's a bit penalty dependent, Penandes as people call him, but he might get up to speed pretty quickly. Man United look better and better. And without Ronaldo and some potential new signings in January, potentially Cody Gakpo coming in as a striker, Fernandes could be a really, really, really good option. Even alongside Rashford. Both of them at the same time might also be a good idea. Raheem Sterling, this is also kind of a out there pick. I haven't seen Sterling picked by many content creators, but this is sort of like a legacy pick for Kimo. I know if Kimo was here right now, he'd say that, if you look at the historical fixtures, Sterling has scored every game against Bournemouth. And that is kind of true. So if you really like historical fixtures, like Kimo does, then Sterling is a really good option. Scored a hat-trick against Bournemouth once, and scored pretty much every match against Bournemouth since then. He has a really good track record against Bournemouth. Chelsea should be big favourites in the match, and Sterling has a lot to prove after like a so-so World Cup, where it seems like he's been usurped by a couple English wingers. Obviously, he also had the thing where he had to go back to protect his family and stuff, so hopefully he's back and mentally ready to perform again for Chelsea. You also never know with Graham Potter's Chelsea. He might play left wing back all of a sudden, so that's what puts me off with Sterling. If he was like prime Sterling, like he used to be, like even a year ago, then he'd be probably in my team at the moment. But he's a bit of a risky pick. But he's a great differential if you want someone different. Speaking of English wingers that are better than him, Phil Foden, he's also kind of like a template pick, so I'm kind of cheating having him in the squad. He just makes a lot of sense. It's just a matter of if you don't have De Bruyne, you should go with Foden. But you could potentially go with De Bruyne as well. He was the man of the match against Liverpool just now. Looked amazing again after a really horrendous World Cup. He's back with Haaland and they link up very well. And he's looking offensively gifted as always. And he's also a really good pick. But he's about 4 million more than Foden. I don't think it's worth it personally. So I think Foden's a better option, to be honest. Foden is definitely a great pick. Wilfried Zaha, I mentioned it a bit earlier, might get a double game week potentially. Fulham at home in the first match. That's a game that will be a lot of goals scored probably, even though it's Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace is kind of... It's usually 2-1 with Crystal Palace, so who knows really. Zaha was a bit of a troll, as you can see from this team as well. Foden, Zaha, Trossard, along with Maddison, were like the template midfield before the break. So you might get some PTSD from looking at those three guys next to each other again. But if they get playing time, then they have good chances to score. Trossard as well, like I mentioned, Brighton, potentially 2 double game weeks, potentially a triple double game week. That would have been amazing. Russell Westbrook would be really happy if you get that reference, if you're an NBA fan. Anyways, I'm rambling. I should go on. Trossard, he's been amazing this season, especially under the Serbi for Brighton. Scored a hat-trick against Liverpool at Anfield, and he's been just a really good player. Only thing with Trossard is he's struggled a bit more against the easier teams. He usually scores against the bigger teams. So I know at least Kevin has had a really terrible time with Trossard this season, having him when he hasn't scored and not having him when he's been amazing. So he's a bit of a wild card, Trossard, but I feel like just getting him and having him the rest of the season just makes sense. He's going to score a lot of points. Brighton are attacking minded, and Trossard is their talisman, so makes a lot of sense. Another player that I'm also keen on is Harry Kane. It's pretty much every time with FPL I'm considering Kane, and then right before the deadline I drop him. That was the fact before the start of the season. I was going with the threemium of Salah, Kane, and Haaland, and then at the end I got cold feet and sold Kane, and Kane has been just delivering every single time. He is Mr. Reliable in the Premier League, even though Tottenham have been a bit shaky, especially before before the World Cup break. So you don't really know if he's going to be, or if Spurs are going to be that good, but they have some really good players, Kulusevski and Son as well. Kulusevski is also a decent option. I don't have him listed here, but you can definitely have him as well, rather than Zaha, for example. But yeah, anyways, you shouldn't pick this squad just entirely. You shouldn't pick this squad because it doesn't have essential players like Trippier and Haaland, especially Ward for that matter. I think it's pretty much essential. At least Haaland and Trippier. Anyways, moving on from Kane, it's just he delivers pretty much every time he gets a chance. He takes penalties for Spurs, obviously. Spurs have decent-ish fixtures, but doesn't really matter. Kane can score against anyone, and they get a double game week eventually as well. I think. I'm getting confused again. Anyways, Kane, double game week or no double game week, he's a great option anyway, even for his pretty high price. Then you have a final Man United attacker, which is Anthony Martial. I mentioned him earlier. He's also sort of like a template-ish pick. Him or Mitrovic, or even, yeah, I mean, the template is pretty much Haaland and Darwin mostly, and then pretty much everyone, a lot of people have Mitrovic, some people have Martial. He's a great option. 6.7 starting striker for Man United with Ronaldo gone. He's the clear starting striker, at least for now. We know that they are after January signing in the striker position. I mentioned Cody Gakpo earlier. He might be coming in there as well, so that's my only worry with Martial, that he might not be the starting striker for long, but who knows? Man United, it seems like the type of club that waits until the end of the month before they get their business done, so he might still have some really good matches in him before you need to sell him. They have the 3 upcoming game weeks, which are like within like slightly more than a week. They play three game weeks. Those are the 3 game weeks you want Man United players, so you can have him for those 3 game weeks and then swap him for someone else. One of the options I've been looking at, who's also kind of a out there pick, is Danny Ings, who's been really good for Aston Villa since they swapped their manager, since Gerrard went out. Obviously, they brought in Unai Emery, and Danny Ings looks like he's thriving under Emery. So Martial to Ings, when that time comes, might be a good option as well. Moving on the bench, we have Callum Wilson. Just depends if you want to bench him or not in this game week. You might bench, I don't know, you might downgrade Zaha to someone and then put Wilson in the starting lineup. But whatever, you like I said, you shouldn't have this squad entirely anyway, so... But yeah, Wilson is just another differential-ish shout. Alexander Isak is still struggling with injuries. Newcastle have been amazing. So, I mean, tripling up on Newcastle was like all the rage right before the World Cup break. And it's not really that big of a reason to not do that again, I guess. They have Leicester away, which could be a tricky fixture to start with. That's why he's benched in this squad. But yeah, Newcastle have shown that they can beat pretty much anyone. So... Wilson is another great option until Isak is back, and then don't really know after that. Patterson, apart from Bueno, he's the best cheap defender that you can stash on your bench. He's 4.0. He's going to play every match for Everton, and even though Everton haven't been the best defensively, with Patterson, they've had some good patches this season. And then finally, my last sort of differential pick is Perrault. As we saw from the fixture ticker, Southampton have pretty decent fixtures going forward. Perrault is 4.4 million, and he scored a couple goals, a couple screamers, in fact. So he's a decent attacking option, as well as playing for a team with good fixtures. So Southampton are pretty bad. I haven't really considered a Southampton player throughout this whole season, but Pearl should be potentially in your thoughts. But anyways, that's the alternate squad. I've showed you the template squad. I showed you the alternate squad. Now I'm going to show you my current squad. At least I switched it a couple times right before this podcast while watching the Liverpool match, actually, or Liverpool Man City match. But anyways, this is the current iteration of the squad. So I've gone with Kepa and Ward, the template picks as goalkeepers. I mentioned before why you should have them. Cancelo, like I said, I have to have him since all you guys have him as well. I can't be watching him scoring goals when he doesn't get that much XG like he has done previously this season. He just always seems to turn up when I don't have him. He's going to be cursed when I have him, so you're welcome beforehand. Seeing as I have him in my squad, you probably shouldn't have him, but that's just me and my superstition talking. Gabriel, like I said, one of my favorite players in FPL. Got a 15-pointer for me right before the break. I think he's worth extra money compared to White. He's better when he comes. Bonus is sort of similar, but Gabriel, I think is just more solid and more of a goal threat. It's more fun to watch corners for Arsenal when you have Gabriel compared to Ben White. But Ben White has been a good right back going up and assisting and stuff, so you can't really go wrong with either of them with Arsenal's good defense. Which they probably need with less of a striker they have less to go with going forward with Jesus being injured. Reece James, again, seems to be cursed when I have him, but just makes sense to have him. As you can see on the right there, I might sell him as a cost-cutting move to get Darwin up front, because that's another guy I really want to have, or at least I'm considering. It feels wrong to not have a single Liverpool player because, as you can see, I don't have Mo Salah either. Anyways, Trippier, no reason to talk about him. He's just going to be in my squad the whole season. He's been my best player this season. I had him from the start. Never going to sell him. He's going to be starting every game, even when it's Leicester away. So yeah, Trippier is just there every time. Like I mentioned earlier, Foden, I prefer him over De Bruyne considering the price. It's just a matter of if you place or not. Foden and De Bruyne, I've switched between them and never had them at the right time. That's Man City for me. Man City and Chelsea always seem to get the worst from me. So yeah, but yeah, Foden, he's just such a good player. He should be worth more than 8.3 in FPL, considering how vital he is for Man City and stuff. Trossard, like I mentioned earlier, potential triple game week, two potential double game weeks. They have good fixtures all around. Regardless, I'm a huge fan. Just makes sense. Rashford, I think he's a template pick for a reason. He's so cheap. He should be much more expensive. He used to be like 9.0, 9.5 type of money or type of price. Sorry. But yeah, he's really cheap now and he's performing. He looks electric, so I think he makes a hell of a lot of sense in your squad, or in my squad for that matter. Same with Haaland, captain fantastic. I'm gonna captain him every time, especially against Leeds. Haaland and his history with Leeds as well. His dad played for Leeds, and Haaland was kind of a fan of them growing up, as well as being a fan of City apparently. But yeah, I've also gone with Kane. Rather than going with Salah or De Bruyne, I've gone with Kane. He seems like a bit of a differential. Most people are disregarding him. He sort of had like a disappointing World Cup. I think he was actually pretty good. It's just he didn't score that many goals, and he obviously missed the vital penalty against France. But I think Kane is just a great option, and I'm tired of just talking myself out of Kane and ending up without his points because he's been so good when I don't have him. So I feel like I should finally just have him when no one else has him. My only worry, like I said, with Spurs is that they haven't looked that good lately. Conte seems a bit like, I don't know. It seems like his time with Spurs isn't going to be. It's not going to last that long with Conte and Spurs. So who knows? But Kane usually delivers regardless if they are good or bad. So he's still a great option in my view. Martial as well. It's my final striker. As you can see in the potential moves, I might downgrade James so I can afford going with Darwin. At the moment, I actually have enough cash to go from Martial to Firmino, but Firmino just got injured, so he's out now. That would have been a great option if I wanted Liverpool cover. But now he's out, so it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to bring him in, of course, because he's injured. Darwin, though, makes a lot of sense, especially if he can start scoring his chances. But who knows? That's why I'm a bit apprehensive. I feel like James is quite a bit better than Chalobah, and I don't feel like Martial is that much worse than Darwin, potentially. Martial could be really explosive as well, so I don't know. I'm still sticking with this team for now. On the bench, I mentioned Ward several times. Almiron as well, I mentioned him earlier. Just makes a lot of sense for his cheap price, considering he scored the most points in midfield this season. It just makes a lot of sense to have him. The question is if I should start him or not. That's what I need to decide. Should I bench Gabriel maybe? I don't know. I might downgrade or upgrade someone to fit Almiron into the starting lineup. Who knows? But as of now, he's my first player on the bench. Second player on the bench is Bueno, who, like I mentioned before, he's the best cheap defender just to stash on your bench. And then rather than going with Pereira, I didn't quite have enough money. I do have enough money with this squad to upgrade Somerville to Pereira, but I feel like I'm not going to play Pereira in these next two fixtures anyway, and the double game week is sort of like, they play Chelsea. Is that much better? I don't know, maybe. I might still go with Pereira rather than Somerville, but Crescencio Somerville, the number 10 for Leeds, was really, really, really good before the break. It seems like he's breaking out. He's 4.4. I feel like he could be a really good option for them. Sinistera still struggling with injuries, so he should still be playing for Leeds. Both Somerville and Rodrigo are decent options. Rodrigo was in my alternate squad for quite some time actually as well. But yeah, Somerville makes a lot of sense as well. I feel like he's a good cheap option, but obviously you could also go with Pereira, who's the more safe pick. But yeah, that's my squad basically. You can see my potential moves. I'm still not sure. I have been swapping in players left, right, and center the last few days after catching up with FPL. Sometimes I feel like I should put Salah in there. Sometimes I feel like I should put De Bruyne because I feel like he's better an option than Salah. But then I feel like Foden is better than De Bruyne again, and I just switch around. Do I want Kane? Do I want Darwin? Should I downgrade Kane to Darwin and get someone else? There's so many options, really. But like I always do, I'm going to post my team, or always, like I often do with these podcasts, is that I post my team on Twitter before the deadline on the same day. I think like early Monday morning, Boxing Day morning. Probably going to post my final lineup right before the deadline, or like an hour or half an hour before the deadline. So you'll get to see what my squad is, and I'm sure Kevin will do the same, and I'm sure Kimo will do the same as well. I'm going to urge them to do that so we can share it all on the Videoscope's Twitter, the FPL Scope. The Videoscope is my personal site, or Kevin and I have a website where we have a preseason guide for FPL every season. So you should check that out if you haven't done that yet. But this podcast is the FPL Scope because it's more FPL centric. The Videoscope has a couple more stuff like basketball, wrestling, a couple other stuff that I've written over the years. I haven't really written that much the last few years, but anyways, there's an archive there if you want to read a lot of different articles. But anyways, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel as well, the FPL Scope. You can find it on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram, FPL Scope. You can find us Twitter, the FPL Scope. You can find me at Maaftada, as you can see under me right there. You can see my Twitter handle if you want to follow me. You can follow Kevin at Kevin Isanka, and you can follow Kimo at Kooshy13, Kooshy 13, the number 13. So yeah, that's pretty much how you follow us. You can also like this video if you want, or comment down below if you have any questions about your Gameweek 17 squad and potential like options. I know one of the things that I've been thinking about is Arsenal. If I want an Arsenal attacker, I don't have an Arsenal attacker currently because I feel like your fixtures are a bit meh, and without Gabriel Jesus, I don't know if I trust them going forward that much. And like Kimo said, Arteta sometimes just goes super defensive and secures like 1-0 wins left, right, and center. So I don't have an Arsenal attacker currently, but I've had Martinelli in my squad. He has been in my squad for quite some time, so I have money saved up on him. He's 6.5. So there's a question if I go with an Arsenal player as well. If I go with one Arsenal player attacker and one Man United attacker rather than doubling up on Man United, do I go with Rashford and Nketiah, or do I go with Martial and Martinelli? Because they are the same price for me. That's like one of the issues I have. So if you have a suggestion for who I should pick out of those two options, then please tell me in the comments. Do you like Rashford and Nketiah, or do you like Martial and Martinelli more for the same price? So yeah, any questions like that, you can also just put in the comment section if you want, or you can try to reach me on Twitter or something like that. I'll try to respond if I see any questions. But anyways, that's it for me now. Like I said, we'll be ready for the next game week as well. Kevin will be back for that, and eventually Kimo will be back as well with all three of us. You can also, right before I let you go, you can also join our mini league. It's right above me there. You can see the league code, which is 6IYV7U. Please join our league. We don't really have that many players as of now, but we got quite a few players in World Cup Fantasy. We actually eclipsed the amount of players in World Cup Fantasy compared to what we have in the FPL league. So please join the FPL league as well if you have the chance. I'm currently bottom of the table. As you can see, my rank is really, really bad this year. That's also why I've sort of gone a bit off template with some of my picks, at least. No Liverpool, no Arsenal, which is kind of, who knows? Who knows if that's smart or not? But I just feel like doing something different and having some different picks, at least, just to make the game more fun, because this is going to be one of my worst seasons of all time. But anyways, that's enough of me rambling all by myself for 40 minutes. Thank you, and good night, and see you next time. Good night, good morning if it's morning for you. Anyways, goodbye. See ya.